So, good evening, everybody. Welcome to a new human experience podcast. Today is November the 12th, 2020, and the topic for tonight is the collective trauma. When I was thinking about the topic for tonight, I was actually totally not thinking about the what is going on right now, even though yes, we are going through another rather interesting time. However, the collective trauma that I was referring to was actually something that happened a long time ago. So before I go any further, I actually want to start by telling you all stories, a few stories before I go more into talking about the theme for this month is illumination, which is really another name for ascension or awakening. So it is really the expansion, the expanding and raising our own consciousness, and collectively we are doing that. And even though we are doing it at our own individual rate, but collectively, we are all expanding, we are all ascending, we are all awakening. So, in order to really understand about the process of illumination, I actually want to go back and tell some stories about how we got to where we are right now, because um, by all intents and purposes, we ought to have been way more ahead of where we are right now. However, um, something happened very dramatically, maybe about 12 or 13,000 years ago, which impacted our collective awakening. And so I want to kind of briefly tell the story of Atlantis, even though the story started even before Atlantis. However, I want to start because I want to, for the sake of time, I just want to start with Atlantis. And more specifically, it is really retelling the story of how Atlantis sank. So, the sinking of Atlantis. So, Atlantis was created on sacred principles. And the aim of those sacred simple, principles was really to um, fast track the growth of human awareness on Earth at the time. So, they created using sacred geometry to create this geographic location that's called Atlantis. And very specifically, they laid out how the city is supposed to be, and they actually use very high level principle of sacred geometry in order to create this city, and also to attract in just the right people to and put them in very specifically and geographically strategic places in order to take advantage of the sacred geometry. And so for a period of time, the human consciousness grew very fast, and because this Atlantis was really a planned city, very carefully planned. However, the best laid plans um, created by the ascended masters did not really match up with the mysterious will of the universe, shall we say? So a couple of events happened that really impacted the supposedly fast tracking trajectory of the human race in on Atlantis. The first thing happened was that a race of beings from Mars who were really leftovers from a previous Luciferian experiment time traveled or use a very high technology, really advanced technology. They came from a different time period, and because they were actually running for their lives because their own planet was really had a very short period of time. It was going to be destroyed because of their own because of part of the Luciferian experiment. So they're on a destructive timeline, and they use this advanced technology called a synthetic Merkaba, or using the technology of synthetic Merkaba, and they remote viewed and saw on Earth there is this place that they can go to in order to escape their own fate. So they time traveled and just went into Atlantis. So, and they settled in Atlantis. And even though the rest of the people that were already on Atlantis did not agree to them, but because they are who they are, they don't really care. They just, they just decided to drop in from a totally different time space and just stayed. And of course, the people on Atlantis, there are more people, and also the people that were in Atlantis at the time was technologically fairly advanced as well. Maybe not as advanced as the people that came from Mars from a different time period. However, they kind of the people that came in from Mars, they couldn't really, they don't have enough people, and they don't have enough firepower to kind of blast away and to destroy the rest of the Atlantis. So they have to work together, but in a very uneasy alliance. Let's call it that way. Uneasy truce. So it was this way that Atlantis, for kind of just accommodated this very this intrusion for a period of time. And then the second event that really impacted Atlantis was that there was it's more of a meteor that struck Earth. And even though Earth was not destroyed, however, parts of the Atlantis was really sustained some damage. It was not to the level of extinction. There was some damage. However, most of the people survived. However, the Martians, the people that came from the different time space, they were the one that really suffered the most loss of lives, and also loss of the buildings, and they suffered the most. And because of this, and because of who the Martians were, so they reacted. They were so furious that they decided that they want to take hands into, they decided to take matters into their own hand, in that they don't want to stay on Earth because, you never know when the meteor is going to come and, strike them again. So they decided that they want to find another environment that is safer than Earth. So what they did was, because they have already once created technology that used a synthetic Merkaba in order to remote view and find the right time and space to teleport to safe space at one point in time. So they thought they can do it again. So they decided to do that. However, because it's been at least in a couple hundred years, and also because a lot of the people that have the knowledge died during the more recent meteor strike. So they actually did not manage to recreate the technology perfectly. So they, in other words, they made a bad mistake. And this time when they turn on their machine that use the synthetic merkaba, what happened was it created a rift. It actually ripped time space open to the extent that all the dimensions were ripped apart, and it was bad. It was to say that it's a disaster is really a disaster is a walk in the park compared to what the Martians did by totally miscalculated how to recreate the synthetic merkaba. So they created a monumental catastrophe so bad that the powers to be that is monitoring Earth decided to shut it down. And what they did was they created a pole shift. And so they did what they needed to in order to protect the rest of the universe, because what the Martian did by miscalculating and turning on a bad technology could have affected all of the universe. So in order to kind of just control everything to be just on Earth, they have to the powers to be of the universe caused a pole shift on Earth. And so for that, some of the results is that Atlantis sank, and it actually, because of the pole shift, so everything, just the whole electromagnetic grid just went offline for a few days, and it was total darkness. Like, there was darkness, not darkness as in there is no electricity kind of darkness, but there's actually nothing, darkness. And so in the consciousness, in the consciousness of the people there, because there's the electromagnetic grid was shifted in such a way that the electromagnetic grid around Earth went offline for a few days. And that's not good news, because when the electromagnetic grid is not working properly, then human beings, I would say human beings that are living at a kind of in a low enough vibration, what happened is that our brain is electromagnetic, and that's how we retain our memory. When that electromagnetic grid went offline on Earth, and it means that the whole memory, all the memories of people that have not ascended before that time, what happened was they lost their memory, meaning that they don't remember their name. They don't know even the most basic things like how to eat. They don't even know how to, they don't remember that anymore. They were like animals. All of a sudden, they just were like zombies. All they know is just to walk around. They don't remember anything. They don't even though at the time before the pole shift, Atlantis, most of the people in Atlantis, even though they may not have ascended, meaning that even though they may not have achieved a certain vibration where they would be able to maintain their own electromagnetic grid separate from Earth. So when you part of the ability of somebody who is in ascension is they can actually remember how to maintain their own electromagnetic grid around their body without relying on Earth to supply that. So that's part of the ascension process as well, is to really be able to maintain your own hologram without any assistance. So there may be a fraction, only a small fraction, less than 10%, of the population in Atlantis at the time has reached this status. All the rest, because of this process, they forgot who they are. They don't remember anymore, and and not just that, Atlantis sank as well. So a lot of the people weren't able to survive because when the land goes down, then and they don't remember how to swim, they don't remember any of those things. So a lot of them died, perished with Atlantis, and some, even though some survived, for whatever reason, they managed to survive. And also the people, that small fraction of the population, less than 10%, who were able to um, maintain their own electromagnetic grid, those, we call them ascended masters, they were able, some of them were able to do that. So those people were able to remember who they are and retain all of their consciousness and awareness. So those people were able to, and they were able to use the technology that was still there to take themselves to kind of took themselves to safety. And part of and a small portion of the Atlanteans who were not ascended masters, they also survived. So that's why when that catastrophe struck, um, it was, I would say, yeah, the whole Earth experiment was able to still carry on, even though we were kind of down to the bare minimum. So when I was thinking of the topic for tonight is the collective trauma, I was actually referring to this trauma, the sinking of Atlantis, and all the events that led up to that. Is so the trauma is, if you it's something that is kind of buried deep inside our psyche. We at a um not, I wouldn't say at the soul level, but absolutely at the entity level. At the entity level, we remember it because the entity, which is that the earth soul, the part of ourselves that is belonging to earth and never goes to other planet, so that part of us remembered that. We remembered that, um, all that trauma of what happened, and also the big catastrophe that happened. And I'm really just glossing over the story right now. There are so many other details that actually made this such a the sinking of Atlantis such a monumental catastrophe in within the psyche of the human collective. So, and so in one fell swoop, in the span of just a couple of days, the average collective consciousness sank down to very low. We were like pretty much like animals again, doing our best to survive. So that's one part of the big story that I want to share. And then, so the next story I want to share is something that kind of happened maybe about, starting to happen a couple hundred years after the sinking of Atlantis. And and it's not just that. Is after a couple hundred years, the human race was able to survive, and for whatever reason, we were able to actually start to make a life for ourselves. And of course, the ascended masters, they were trying to find out, okay, what can we do in order to um, assist humanity to get back to where we were? Because yes, eventually the consciousness, because that's really the way it is, that consciousness would grow again. However, it's going to take a long time. Remember, Atlantis grew, the consciousness Atlantis grew because of um, the some of the ascended masters knew about sacred geometry, so they were able to construct a city based on that principle in order to facilitate the growth of human consciousness. Now, without all of that help, how are they going to um, get human consciousness back into much more, um, I would say, civilized level? So they actually found, with the guidance and help of the Galactic Federation, they actually found a way to reconstruct the grid, because remember the failed experiment of creating a synthetic Merkaba really ripped apart dimensions. And so they were able to, with help from galactic federations and all that, be able to kind of put the dimensions back together again. However, they kind of contained everything within Earth. And the part of the dimensions that were not able, that they weren't able to completely correct yet, and that was contained on Earth. So that's why there was a negative grid that surrounds and isolated Earth for such a long time. And so they devised a plan to create and construct a Christ consciousness grid, which um, in order for something to exist, there has to be a grid. There has to be, or a matrix. So in order for a butterfly to be able to like survive and be on Earth, there has to be a grid that dictates what does a butterfly look like, what can a butterfly do, and all that. So there's something called a Christ consciousness grid, which dictates what ascension be, because Christ consciousness is ascended master. Christ is Jesus. Jesus Christ is an ascended master. So the consciousness of that level of consciousness, there has to be a grid. But because Earth at the time, the consciousness dropped so much that they needed to construct a synthetic Christ consciousness grid. They construct, so they were able to construct that synthetic consciousness grid, so that in time, when the Earth, when the people of Earth started to, the consciousness started to rise again, they'll be able to gradually fit into and be able to, like, instead of having the Christ consciousness grid being synthetic, it can become organic again. So, which is around the time that we are here now. This is when all the alignment of where Earth is and the cosmos, and because there's been so many beings of light from much higher dimension incarnating on Earth, that we were able to raise the consciousness of Earth to the point where the Christ consciousness grid does not have to be, we don't have to rely on the synthetic one. We can actually have the organic Christ consciousness grid being online fully, being sustaining and powering everybody, that, and also being able to be active as well. So this is what the time that we are coming into now. So that's all that in the next couple hundred years, that's all of the things that the ascended master that were that have survived this catastrophe was able to do. They were able to get um, consent from Galactic Federation and arrange everything, and also started to um, in very subtle ways, starting to assist those human beings who were not have not gotten to the Christ consciousness grid yet. However, they managed somehow to survive the catastrophe. So every now and then, at the right moment, the ascended master would appear to these very primitive beings and showed them some things that will help them to get on to the next level of consciousness. And it is with the help of the right amount of stimulus from these ascended masters that we were able to slowly our consciousness rise again. So this is another story, which is the story of how the we kind of overcame the monumental catastrophe that was caused by the synthetic Merkaba went wrong. And so the third story I want to tell is really a story of the I would say not really the caveman, because caveman is maybe a little bit too primitive, but really more as humanity got to the part of being living in tribal environment. Because now when we are living in the concrete jungle of cities and villages, we don't really remember what it was like. But before there were cities, before there were villages, when human beings were just hunter gatherers, and we're just tribes. We go from place to place. We migration and all that is really how part of that really exists in our psyche, even though it's such a long time ago. So this story is really about how the tribal people, how they manage to stay alive, because there are in the wild where they need to travel from place to place in order to find food, to hunt for food to eat and all that. How they survive is by banding together a small group of people, and and by that time they were able to they know how to make use of fire. So fire was actually they use fire now, and fire is not just to cook food to keep them warm, it's also to help them fight off these predators that actually come at them, things like lions, leopards, like cheetahs, hyenas, all those animals that are really, a lot of them are far superior and much stronger animals than human beings. So, however, human beings have, we were able to, we know how to use fire in order to defend ourselves. We, in starting to also, we started to be able to create weapons which gives us a slight edge above all the other much bigger and stronger predators that are out there. So in a tribe, though, we still have to stick together as a tribe, and that's why in a tribe, all everybody share the chores, the things that needed to be done during the daytime. The strong people, the more physically strong, usually men, would be able to go and hunt and bring back animals to eat, and also to do other things. For example, to get their skin and all the other things. So So that's what the strong people do. So those that are weaker, the young humans, and also female or people that are not as strong, not strong enough to go hunt, they would stay and be in the camp to do things like prepare food, to gather wood for fire, and all those other things that needed to be done, and also to kind of and also to, even though they are not strong enough to go and hunt for animals, but they're still strong enough to defend themselves with fire, with kind of very primitive weapons that they have made for themselves. So, and in the evening, when the men, usually whether they are successful hunting or not, in the evening before it gets dark, they will always come back to the tribe, to the camp, because it's when it's dark, no matter how good a hunter or how good you are, you won't be able to stand against these much stronger predators that are out there. So, however, when they are back in camp, they have fire, because the women during the daytime, they were able to keep the fire going, and so at night they don't have to really go and make their own fire again. They actually have fire already that they can use to defend themselves at night. And also they have developed these habits where they would talk about the hunt. So they would make noise, because when you make noise, when you come together as a group, then it's more intimidating. So unless there is a big group of lions and leopards and all that, they won't come to they won't be, there won't be enough of a animal power to overcome a group, a tribe. So tribes form. So all this mentality. So now let's um, get back to talking about how that is relevant to our consciousness. So within our consciousness, there are these collective trauma, the collective trauma that was created by the sinking of Atlantis, of how we as a civilization and we were actually much closer to being uh, ascending than we are now. And so in our memory, we kind of, there is this memory that on the one hand, we want to ascend, because ascension meaning that there are certain abilities that comes with natural abilities that comes with ascension. However, there is also this collective trauma of Atlantis, which actually turned us in our psyche. We also feared ascension as well, because in our psyche we remembered what happened the last time our consciousness raised, is that this catastrophe happened. So within our memory we also have this catastrophe that is, it's like it's a push pull. We want to raise our consciousness, because with consciousness or with higher consciousness comes a lot more I would say wisdom and abilities, and also, but also there's this avoidance, that we have this collective fear from the trauma. So that's why, as much as we want to ascend, there is also a part of us that is self-sabotaging ourselves. So that's also something within our psyche as well. This collective trauma that is holding a lot of us back. Not all of us, but a lot of us. We actually that's why we have this pushback of not wanting to ascend. We want to actually just stay and mm, not go beyond, because if we go beyond, there's this remnant fear of this catastrophe in the past. And some of the other things that is occupying or just holding us back is also this idea of being in a tribe. Because when we were in our survival gather hunter days, being in a part of a tribe and having the support of our peers and being accepted by the group that we're in is such a big deal. And every time, like if we're not accepted by our group, then it literally means death for us in the tribal days. So that's why it's very deep into our psyche of this fear of being rejected, and also this addiction to trying to please people. Because if we please people, then we figured that we will be accepted, and if we are accepted, then we will be safe because the tribe is going to help us, defend us. And so much so that that kind of contributed to all of our relationship issues that we are seeing now, is that, like, even talking to people in this group and during the discussion in the podcast, I've heard people sharing with me is that the issues with their family members. And I know from a modern mind point of view, because the society is very different now. We have a lot more autonomy. As long as we can find job or somehow earn enough money to support ourselves, then we can actually, we don't we feel, we kind of have the impression that we don't need to have the approval of our family. However, deep in our psyche, there is this fear, this kind of primal fear that being not accepted by our family is actually, it's a death sentence. Because when we were in our tribal days, it actually meant the difference between life and death. Because if you're not supported by your group, if your group does not support you, it meant that you will be and sooner, and usually sooner rather than later, you're going to be end up a like experiencing a very violent death by being, quartered, drawn and quartered and eaten by animals, by other predators. So this fear is actually still hiding in our psyche. That's why when our family does not think the way that we do, it feels like there is so much fear, there's so much angst, anxiety that goes with this. Because at a tribal level, we actually, it really meant the difference of life and death. And now that we are in this modern society, we don't remember it consciously, but unconsciously at a collective level, we still remember those things. These collective traumas, these collective fear is still very real to us, even though we may consciously forget that, that can happen. But unconsciously, we remember it. It is in our DNA, and those fears. So how do we get out of that? How do we get out of these primal fear that that seems that is there within our DNA, that is not so easy for us to kind of rise above? So that's why I want to share these stories, is really to refresh your memory, to kind of refresh and let you to know that if you're having trouble with your family, yes, it's if you really dig deep down, it's because of these fear. It's fear. So that's why, or more specifically, fear of death. Even though you may not consciously think that you're going to die if your family don't see eye to eye with you. However, there is this unconscious fear of death that is there, and it used to be very real, and at a DNA level is still very real to you. So that's why processing your fear is such an important part of raising your own consciousness, because this fear is there's so many layers that is wrapped up in this fear. So the more you can start to process your own fear, just you don't have to process the fear of, okay, I have to process, how do I process the fear of being eaten by a lion? Something like that. You don't have to do that. You just process the fear that you feel in your daily lives, because that fear is really the surface level. At the deep down, there is another fear that has been stored in your DNA. And you can start by processing the service one. In the more buried and deep layers, the will be taken care of by other means. By other means, meaning that because now the Christ consciousness grid is back online, the organic one is back online. So that, and connecting to your soul, connecting to your higher self, to really rely and trust that your higher self and your soul would be able to assist you in letting go of those deep down fear. If you start to take care of the surface fear and ask for help from your soul, then your soul will start to arrange for help to come, for you to start to let go and loosen these collective fear. And the other things to help you raise your consciousness is also to be the observer. So take on the role of being the observer. And the more I would say, the deeper level of that is that you are not your body, that you are the real you is actually spirit. You are spirit, pure and simple. You are spirit. You, the real you, is your soul, is the combination of your soul and also your entity and your higher self. That you are spirit. You're not your body. Your body is the vessel that allows you to experience this reality. So for me, what really helped me to on my consciousness, raising my own consciousness journey, is this blind faith or blind belief. I say blind because I know it. I don't consciously, how should I say it? I don't know, I don't have proof of it yet. I remember a long time ago, I remember that I am not my body. I am the soul. How I remember that, I don't really remember anymore. I have no proof because I was still quite attached to my body. However, somewhere at the back of my mind, I also know that I am spirit, and that I am more than this body. I don't have proof. I don't have personal experience to support that. But on some level, I know that I am spirit. And no matter um, how reality and my body convince me, is trying to convince me otherwise, that I am this body, and that whatever this body um, is really who I am. Like when you live life, it's very easy to lose sight of the fact that you are spirit, because everything about this reality, this third dimension living, is to kind of what third dimension is really about the body, experiencing the body as experiencing consciousness as the body. However, um, even when I am still don't have proof that I'm more than this body, some part of me know that I am spirit. I am not this body, or that I am not just this body. That beyond this body, there is also my soul as well. So just just hanging on to this, I think it's more than a belief. It's a choice. I choose to be the spirit that I am. So, and this persistence is really what sustained me for most of my journey, which also every time I felt kind of, I don't know what my next step is going to be. Like things are not going well. I can't seem to be able to steer my life in what I thought was the right direction. However, because I know that I am spirit, and that all that I'm experiencing is just the body experiencing my consciousness. So this persistence, this belief that I am spirit, this choice that I'm spirit, is really what sustained me and allowed me to never give up on myself, even when it does not look good. So this is kind of another one of my, I would say, insight that really helped me to sustain myself for so long, even though most of the people I know, when I look around, is the people that really remembered that they are their spirit, are far and few between. However, just this blind belief and trust that I am spirit really sustained me for all these years. So that's a big point that I want to stress. And then the next one is that everything that you're experiencing is a reflection of your consciousness. All that we ever experience, we think that reality is real, what happening outside is real. However, it's real to the extent that we are experiencing a reflection of what's within me. So what I am experiencing is really a reflection of my consciousness. So other ways of saying this is really what Marina Jacobi mentioned, is that you're in hologram. You are actually the one that's creating and projecting this hologram, and you are the one that um, and how you create this hologram, you create it by your consciousness. Your consciousness, whatever it is that's within your consciousness, you project it out and you create this hologram around you that you experience with your body as reality. So that's what reality really is is um is really, we experiencing our consciousness. And when our consciousness shifts, our experience will start to shift. And so it's about, that's why I mentioned so many times, is that it's really to start to pay attention to your life as a hologram. And when you start to pay attention, um, then you will start to notice that it is true, because you only you don't really experience reality. You how should I put it? You don't experience reality. You experience your belief, whatever it is. So your beliefs really is part of your consciousness, the construct of your consciousness. When you start to raise your consciousness and you start to focus on the beliefs that's going to support you to have a higher consciousness, then you actually experience a different level of reality. That's why when we get to the level of Christ consciousness, which we will get to, don't worry, that's what the when we fully integrated fifth dimension consciousness, then we will go to fifth consciousness, the Christ consciousness level. We experience reality very differently, because part of the Christ consciousness and the fifth dimensional, fully integrated fifth dimensional consciousness is that we can maintain our own hologram. So we can actually we maintain our own electromagnetic grid, which is really our own hologram. Right now, we still very much influenced by the collective. And when we get to the part where we really get to know who we truly are and um, start to walk our own truth and start to go after our own truth, then we start to create and maintain our own electromagnetic grid, which is our own hologram. So that is really what we are about, what the being fully integrated into fifth dimensional consciousness is about. So that's actually all I wanted to share this evening. Is the it's really the why it has been such a, I would say, long journey, and how come there are so it's not easy for us to get out of this collective illusion and collective trauma. Why so many people really it's so hard for them to wake up. It's because of these very primal traumas that has been on that's in the collective level. And also some of the ways that we can start to get beyond the collective trauma is to process fear, be the observer, and really know that you are spirit, and also to know that you create your own reality. You truly create your own reality. Whatever you're experiencing is simply a reflection of your consciousness. So these four are really the what I found in my own journey of raising my own consciousness, that these are the things that helped me along. And one more I can remind is that when you know that you're a spirit, when you do enough of these processing of fears to the extent that you become clear enough, then you can also ask for help. Ask for help from your soul. and also ask for help um, from your higher self as well. And your higher self and your soul will arrange for help to come to you, whether it is in energetic form or whether it is in very material form. All you have to do is ask. So these is just a summary of what I've shared. And this is what I would like to talk about and talk about for this evening.